Good day and welcome to this tutorial video. If you're watching this probably means that you're interested in creating ERS automated workflows for confirming employee details for the next day's timesheet. This also probably means that you have a client that likes to shift around their employees on a daily basis. They might have a forklift driver named John that works in the receiving department, but today he comes in and they ask him to work in the dispatch department as an inventory clerk. Now we need to be ready for these changes because this is the nature of our business. We are a flexible staffing solution for our clients. They need us to be ready. Now you want your employees to be paid correctly. You don't want them to be paid on a forklift rate when they're an inventory driver, or at least for those hours that they were an inventory clerk. Sorry, not inventory driver. Also, you want your client to be invoiced correctly. When they receive their invoice for the receiving department, they don't want to see the hours that were worked at the dispatch department for that day. So how do we prepare the timesheet, tomorrow's timesheet, today, based on today's changes? The other situation or issue that we're faced with is the fact that flexible staffing, we're always having new employees arriving every single day, well, most days. And if an employee arrives today and they load it onto the device, they're just a number on the system. How do we make it quick and easy for operations or the client to add in those details for those employees in preparation for tomorrow's timesheet, so that those new employees will reflect on the right timesheet tomorrow with the right position, they're allocated to the right shifts, they're allocated to have the right payroll information. So that's what we're going to be tackling today. How do you prepare tomorrow's timesheet based on today's changes? So if we look at the overview over here, we're going to be dealing with this section of the workflows, which is new employee details requests and a confirmation of current employee details confirmations. I've noted these people as or these notifications to be done by the operations department, noting that it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be operations. In some situations it will go to the client. That's if the client requests it, or if operations says that the client is the most suitable person to make these changes. But in most cases it will be operations making these changes, purely because a lot of these changes and the details, especially for new employees, is going to be payroll information, contract order numbers, calendars. So you want to make sure that the right person is adding in those details. Client doesn't have access to a lot of that information. So when making your workflow steps for employee confirmations, you would add these on to the same workflow container as your timesheets. Either they'll be before or after the daily timesheet rules. In a night shift environment, they'll be before the daily timesheet rules, but in most situations, which is a day shift, those employee confirmations will come in after the daily timesheet rules. So we'll have a look at that in more detail and why that is in this tutorial video just a little bit later. So the workflow steps that you'll need is offline employee confirmation report. To generate this report, you need to send email, and a step that will latch onto or grab that offline employee confirmation report and send it to a company contact, bearing in mind that this is going to be going to operations or a client, so you need to give clear instructions about what to do in that email. Then also set a step to monitor to receive an email back for these employee confirmations. You'll also set a notification warning, because what happens if it gets to the end of the day and nobody's confirmed tomorrow's timesheets? You want a little bit of a warning, a notification to say, whoops, something hasn't been done. You don't want to find out the next day when they're emailing you and saying, hey, this guy's not on my timesheet. Then the next step would be PDF confirmations. Once the operations department or the client has confirmed the employee details, we want to send them a confirmation of their confirmation. I hope that's not too confusing, but we want to send them a PDF version of what they have confirmed, so they have it for their records. And then we also need to have a step to send their confirmation to the company contact. So I want to take you quickly to the system and show you where we are. So let me first go to the Manage Workflows, where you can see these are all the workflow containers. Now this is the container that we set up in the previous tutorial video. We're going to open that up. And then we're going to see all of our daily rules that we set up previously. and we're going to add them. This is a day shift environment, so we're going to add in the employee confirmations after the day shift, after the timesheet. Why do we put it after the timesheet? You need to know that the supervisor must always, at the beginning of the shift, the first thing that they must do is confirm the previous shift's timesheets. The second thing that they do, once they've confirmed and approved that timesheet, then they must look at today. What are today's movements to confirm for tomorrow's timesheet, to prepare tomorrow's timesheet. So unfortunately, when you're making changes to employee details, when they send this confirmation report back to the system will make changes to employees' default allocations, which means if yesterday John was a forklift driver, but today he was an inventory clerk, if for any reason the timesheet is not approved, they're still working on the timesheet, but today and the supervisor has sent the confirmation that today John is now an inventory clerk, he sends that to the system. The system will update and change John to an inventory clerk. If they're still making changes on yesterday's timesheet and John is noted as let's say the supervisor changes John's in and out time for yesterday when he was a forklift driver, the system will reprocess the times, bring in his defaults, and now when they get the new timesheet back, on that timesheet John will be an inventory clerk, which is not right. He should have been a forklift driver. So this is why, and I hope that makes sense, this is why the employee confirmations must always be done after the daily timesheet has been confirmed and approved. First step you're putting in is the step to generate this offline timesheet. Sorry, not the offline timesheet, the offline employee confirmation. And I'm going to call this employee confirmations, why not? And remembering this is a day shift, so I want this to be sent to the supervisor at the end of the day. Let's make it run at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, so it's going to generate then. We're going to make it depend on the received daily timesheet, which must be successful. It will not generate unless the timesheet has come back from the supervisor being approved and being successful. We want to view employees by cost center. And while it loads, we want to only report on the second ops department, and we want to report on all fields: invoice authorizer, company code, maybe not all invoice authorizer, but cost center, contract order, all of these things, because a lot of these, if there's new employees in the department or new employees, just generally we want to update their payroll information as well as their other information as cost center. Finish up that rule. Finish it up. Now that we've set a step to generate that offline employee report, we want to set a step to grab their report and send it. So that'll be a send email step, and that's going to be based on the employee confirmations being successful. We're going to call that the send. Have I got it? Send e confirm. We want to view employees by cost center. Send that to James because he's the client today, saying, "Good day, please see attached employee details. Please confirm or make required changes to employee details in preparation," spelled right, good, "for tomorrow's timesheet." So they're clear on what needs to happen. Please mail back to, auto@ersbiometrics.co.za. Great. Attached. Finish that up. Alright, now we need a step to monitor for that email coming back from the supervisor. That's going to be a receive email step based on the step that was sent being successful for those employees. Let's make that run at to 10. So from 10 past 2 it'll start monitoring for that email coming in. So we're going to say receive e-confirmation. There we go. Fantastic. So now, based on the receive, sorry, let me just change this because I clearly have got the time wrong here. Let me edit the workflow. Change the basic details. The time must be 14:02. That's when I must send. Next and next. Finished. Right, fantastic. So now this receive email could either, two things could happen to this receive email. Either the receive email never ever finds an email. Nobody's sending back an employee confirmation sheet, which means the client or operations are sitting on that timesheet and not doing anything about it. You need to know about that. The other situation is they could send it back and confirm or make changes, and they need to have a confirmation of all the changes that they made. So those are the two scenarios that we have here. So we're going to put in two more workflow rules for those two scenarios based on that receive step. The first one would be to notify you if no activities happened. So let's make a new step. It's a send email step. That's based on the receive email confirmation being not processed. Because if that receive email step, if nothing happens, it's always going to be in the status of not being processed. Nothing's been received. It's monitoring, but it's not, nothing's happening. And you want to view employee by cost center. So we're going to be calling this notification employee confirmation fail. It's not really fail. It's called an issue. And that's going to run, going to run, let's say, at 3 in the afternoon. It's going to send to you, and you're going to write yourself a little note with as much details as you can put in there. So you want to know the account, 6091, and that's called Ryan Mittal. Workflow container is second ops. And you're going to tell yourself employee confirmation not received. So you read that in the email that gets sent to you, and you know exactly what to do. Alright, so that's one scenario. The other scenario is that receive step could be received successfully, which means the employee has, the client or the operations have sent back the report as required. You want them to get a confirmation of the confirmation. So that's going to be a generating step. So it's going to be PDF offline employee confirmation. It's going to be dependent on the receive confirmation email being successful. We want to view employees by cost center. We'll want that to run at also probably at 3 o'clock. Either way. That's going to be PDF confirm employees. Call it that. Remembering that the PDF confirmation must be the exact same selections as the original offline employee confirmation sheet report. I'm going to select all of those. And there you go. So that's just generating. So you need another step to send that report that was generated to the client. So one more step. That's going to be a send email step. That's dependent on PDF confirmation being successful. View employee by cost center. That's going to send just after 3. It's going to be send PDF EE confirm, let's call it that, why not? It's going to send to the client, probably you as well if you want it. That's going to be saying thank you for confirming excuse my spelling, confirming employee details in the system is now prepared for tomorrow's timesheet. And finish that up. And there are your rules for confirming tomorrow's timesheet. Let's go back to the system. Let's go back to this and let's start talking about night shifts, the fact that now things are turned on their head. Let's look at this scenario that you have a night shift, starts at 6 in the evening, ends at 6 in the morning. So we're looking at Monday, Tuesday and Wednesday. Your supervisor needs to get that timesheet in the beginning of the day. They need the timesheet from the beginning of the day, and they must always be confirming their employees at the end of the day. So when they come in for the next shift, the first thing they get is the timesheet for the previous shift, that's this shift, and the second thing they get is, again, the employee confirmations confirming for the next shift. Please note that when you're setting up workflow rules, the workflow rule is looking at one day at a time. So the first thing it must be sent, when it triggers on Tuesday, it must send employee confirmations for this shift, for Monday shift. So that when the supervisor goes home and he comes in, when the system triggers to generate this timesheet, it's bringing in the defaults. You would have changed the defaults correctly for this shift in the day for that shift. So when it brings in the defaults, it does the import and runs the defaults, it's going to put people into the right departments, cost centers, and positions, preparing the timesheet. So when you're setting up these workflow rules for the night shift, your first workflow rules will be what we've just gone through now, employee confirmations. And then your second set of workflow rules will be the timesheet, so that the employee confirmations get sent every day to them at say 3 in the morning. But the timesheet will get sent later in the day, and that will be sent, let's say, I don't know, if they start at 6 or maybe 7 or 8 in the evening, so they can get that second in the day. For them it'll be the first thing they get, because it's the first thing they get for the beginning of their shift. Alright, so I hope that makes sense. If it does make sense, if that's not clear, please, if you're an RPC, contact your RPM, get them to explain it to you. If you're an RPM and you don't understand it, please contact me or whoever's in my place whenever you're looking at this video, just to get clarity on that. Alright, so moving right along, let's touch on some very important things about these employee confirmations. Always approve yesterday's timesheet first, and then confirm employee details second. As I said, when you're confirming employee details, you're making changes on the system right now to employees' default allocations. And unless you want those, unless the yesterday's timesheet was confirmed, you might be reprocessing times and bringing in defaults that's only for tomorrow's timesheet, but they're going to reflect on yesterday's timesheet, and it's not what you want. Please be aware of that. Time them wisely. If it's a night shift, know when to put your timesheet rules and when to put your employee confirmation rules, which order to put them in. Do not change names on and export codes. This will be touched on mainly in the next tutorial video on how to use the offline confirmation reports. But if it's current employees, please never change the names or export codes, because that's going to change it on the system as well. If it's a new employee, then please by all means go crazy, change the names, change the export codes, allocate them to their right shifts that they must be allocated to. But yeah, please do not, if it's a current employee, do not make changes to names or export codes. That is a big no-no. New employees, when you load a new employee in the system, then allocate it to no group. So if you want to set up a rule that sends just the new employees that have been loaded that day on that site, select a workflow rule that only reports on the no group employees. Those will be your new employees. So that is that. That is how you set up workflow rules for employee confirmations. So now you know that you can make it quick and easy for the client and operations to make these changes. The tricky part now is to make sure that your client and operations do actually go ahead and make those changes. And that, as we all know, is not easy. That, in fact, is a weak link in the chain. But yeah, let's see how it goes. Good luck for that. So please continue on to the next video, the workflow video, which covers the confirmations of employee, how to use these reports that get sent from the system, how to use the employee confirmation report. Please also bear in mind that when I made this video, it is directed at the client and operation, so I will be talking as if addressing them, but it still has the information you need to know how to use these confirmations. So bear that in mind. Thank you very much for watching and hope you enjoyed it. Cheers.